Our entrepreneur today is Rob Hootselle. Hootselle, thank you. And Rob's going to present his company to us, Cloud and Wire. Rob is the founder. And Rob, I've had you come on up. As he does that, Rob's going to take about 10 minutes to tell us about Cloud and Wire. He's going to go through what the company does, who they are, how they started, all that good stuff. And then we'll take about 8 or 10 minutes to ask questions of Rob to really understand his business. And at the end of his slide presentation is a final slide that's got 1 to 3 questions that he would like feedback, our feedback as entrepreneurs, as business leaders in the community, to help him with maybe some obstacles he's incurred, some ideas that he needs, or some things he's working on. And we'll take probably 5, 6, 7 minutes on each of those. The goal is to give him the feedback that he's looking for. And without further ado, the clicker is yours.
All right. Let's give it a test. There we go. We're good. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, guys.
Good.
My last speech was Wednesday at the Cobb Galleria for 1,500 people, so this is much more conducive to a conversation. My name is Rob Hootselle. I'm the founder of a company called Cloud and Wire. I spent a lot of time in the IT world, so I'm really excited to be able to talk to business owners today. It's been a lot of fun, fellow entrepreneurs. This is my 6th company, 5th in tech. I was also a MC for the World Poker Tour, and owned a casino company and some other fun stuff along the way. But this by far is my baby. So our company, just as a quick overview, helps really build vision for a lot of the big innovative companies that you would think about today. So when you guys heard of Netflix and Google, AT&T, Turner, I helped design data centers for those guys for the last 15 years. A lot of their big mission critical applications, managed security, those kinds of things. And the reason we sort of exist is that for IT, right, if you think back 20 years ago, IT guys really just had to run an ERP system, keep a backup of all your important documents, make sure QuickBooks or whatever you have was running okay, and then make sure the phones were working. Now, fast forward 20 years, there is a deluge of demands coming to IT from every aspect of the business, whether it's IoT from the factory floor, whether it's cloud computing from the DevOps guys, whether it's security from the CISO, right? Saying, hey, cool, you have all this stuff that's now connected, but where's the security around it? Who's managing the walls, right? Who's on the wall? When you get to that level, most of the IT guys kind of start kicking rocks on the floor and think, I'm not sure really what I'm supposed to do. And one of the things that we do really, really well as a company is that we have our team of subject matter experts around every part of the data center. So we're still a small company. We've got 6 full-time consultants, a couple of back office folks, but we support and we partner with over 2,700 different vendors, right? And that gives us a lot of power in the market. And what we really do is a couple of different things. We layer on 3 real main services. 1, subject matter experts in telephony, global communications, large-scale retail. So you guys, Bed Bath & Beyond, Orange Theory Fitness, big, highly scaling franchises might have 5 or 10 or 50 retail locations being opened at any one time. We're able to work with those folks and give them all the insight and all the project management piece to go from A to Z and make sure those stores open on time, or make sure that their global networks roll off in the exact 5-year time frame they're supposed to, and then they get rid of all their old contracts, all that good stuff. The other piece that we do is we have a proprietary set of software that allows us to take any location in the world and find out where all the buried fiber is, which is great. So if you're a large-scale retailer, or if you're a company looking to move to a data center and build something, you want to know who's going to be around there for connectivity, because let's face it, everything that we do now is connected to IT. Kind of getting back to our original point. They really don't have the capability. When I say they, I mean either business unit leaders or IT directors. They don't really have the capability, they don't really have those tools at their disposal to be able to go out and research, compare 50 different vendors, all their speeds and feeds for circuits. Maybe they're looking for security, or maybe they're looking for some type of cloud computing. We have all that at our disposal. and we're able to vet them and talk to them very, very deeply when it comes to actually going to vendor selection. The third part that we do, which I find very fascinating, is that we have actually outsourced all of our back office provisioning and fulfillment, which allows us to really scale at a much faster rate than if we tried to organically grow. This is one of the lessons I learned from one of my first companies, is that you can almost be too successful. I opened a company here in Holly Springs, and we did $5 million our first year when I was 23. When you're 23, you're not really ready for that sort of success, I don't think. I'm probably guilty of that as well. But we tried to manage everything ourselves and do everything ourselves. And what we've learned is as we go forward, it's better to find really good partners that are much, much larger than we are, that can handle a lot of that back office work and provisioning work, and we can manage the managers. So for us, that works out really, really well. And for our clients, it's fantastic because they don't have to wait for us to finish other projects before we can start there. So we can run hundreds of projects concurrently for deployments. These are the different areas that a typical IT manager or a typical business owner has to manage, right? Everything from consulting and professional services, somebody coming in and building a big vision for a 3 to 5 year plan. But bandwidth, network, how do you protect it? How do you back it up? What do you do in case of disaster recovery? What about call centers, phone systems? Right? We're moving everything that we do as a company focuses on emerging technologies. So for the last 9 years before I opened this company up, I worked for 3 different IPO startups, 2 of which were the fastest growing IT companies of all time. Steve Wozniak was my boss. Anybody know Steve Wozniak? Where is he from? Right, so Apple. He came out of retirement. He came out of retirement to form a company called Fusion.io, which was pretty disruptive in the industry. It would basically take the same infrastructure that a company had and allow them to process their reports and their workloads and databases 150 times faster with no changes to the underlying code. Pretty cool stuff. Then went on to work for that then fastest growing billion-dollar valuation company of all time called SimpliVity, which is something called HyperConverged infrastructure. When you see me and you see me say the words HyperConverged infrastructure, you should all do this like we're all wearing glasses, right? Kind of a nerdy term. But basically it was the iPhone for the data center. I now could take a refrigerator full of 15 different products and just cram it into a server that was the size of a briefcase, and I've got a whole data center in a box. This is what Netflix and Google and Salesforce.com and Amazon all run on. It's the same model that's now coming into the public domain, and we were the first ones to do it 7 years ago. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff there. You know, just in bandwidth alone, I think there's something like 280 different providers around the globe. So you start thinking about, as a IT manager that maybe changes something once every 3 or 4 years, that can get pretty overwhelming pretty quick, right? How do I even go and start thinking about researching that, pricing that out, taking those meetings, vetting these guys? That's what we do. Real quick example, because I think they said to keep it around 10 minutes or so, but a real quick example of how we help companies. So how many of you guys ever been to a Mandarin Oriental or seen Mandarin Oriental? It's a nice like $2,000 a night hotel, super top-notch service. They came to me and said, hey, we are having some big problems. We have a corporate office in Atlanta that manages all of our global hotels. Every one of our hotels has about 4 racks like this, just full of stuff. And that might look okay from the front, but if you turn it around, it looks like what? Spaghetti. It looks terrible. And there's no corporate standards. So every single hotel, from Kuala Lumpur to Thailand to China to London, they're all different, right? It's a lot like when you're at home and years ago you had a DVD player and a Roku and a TV with antennas on it and a cable box, and then as time came on and you got the smart TV, you took the DVD player and the Blu-ray, you moved it to your oldest kid's room, and then it kind of went down and down and down. It's the exact same thing these hotels were doing, only there's no IT staff at a hotel. Who runs it at the hotel? When the problem happens? The manager, front desk. That's not a good situation, right? They had no network resiliency, so if the network line went down because somebody backhoed their fiber, they couldn't check guests in, they couldn't check guests out, they couldn't do reservations for the hotel, they couldn't do anything. So they came to us with this big mess. We said, look, what you need to do is have a whole plan, build a vision, right? Those 2 little boxes right there are now in every single hotel. And instead of the IT manager here in Atlanta having to fly every single week, 3 days a week, to every one of those locations to do things as simple as replacing a hard drive or doing a software patch for Windows. He now manages all 45 hotels from here remotely. Global visibility, he can move data between all these different hotels, and it's a third of the price of what it was before, right? We put in a secondary circuit to every one of his locations, so now if one gets cut, the other one stays up. Incredible, incredible transformation of this company. You can think about just the amount of time savings alone, not to mention travel costs and all that stuff, but just the time savings alone. Now they also manage one line item as their entire ID department. That one box right there, those two boxes I should say. Every 5 years they replace them. That's all they do. Really, really nice. So that's kind of what we do as a company, all right? Talk about current state. As I mentioned, we have six techs, 6 subject matter experts right now, a couple of back office folks. We're already profitable. We've been in business about 2 years. I've had the company about 5. We're located, you guys know where the RV dealer is up there with the big flag right there, and where the post office is? We're kind of right in between there by that new hotel. And we're growing. We're actually bringing on 4 more consultants in January. But there's some real specific challenges to our business that aren't necessarily very apparent. We have several different ways that we work. Most of our business is on monthly recurring revenue. I think last time I was here, somebody was talking about that, one of the SaaS guys. About 70% of our business is under monthly recurring revenue, which is great because now we can project out our income for 3 to 5 years, which is what our normal contracts are. And we have about 30-40% of our business is one-time, purchases and resale, kind of like a VAR would be, which is nice from a cash flow perspective because we're not waiting all those months to get paid. But as we grow, one of the things that we really struggle with is how do we manage contracts that are month to month, right? How do you predict that from a management standpoint? Right now, most of the industry that does month-to-month contracts for some of these vendors, they just kind of wait. They kind of wait for the commission bill to show up. And they're like, oh, look, they paid again. Cool, we're good. That's a very difficult way from a management standpoint to run a business, right? Because you don't know if it's a very large customer. That could be a several $1,000s swing every month in terms of how we do it. Also, a lot of the stuff that we do is based on usage. So think about cloud computing or long distance, right? You might contract with somebody for $5,000 a month for 36 months. But 1 month it could be $6,000 because they overused, and some months it could be $4,000 because maybe they closed a site or didn't use any long distance. Okay? So that's a particular challenge we face. One of the other things we struggle with as well, because there's so many, we scaled out via sub-agents as opposed to hiring sales guys. So we have our core team of consultants and subject matter experts, but we go to market instead of cold calling or whatever. We partner with other like companies in our industry. So think realtors or property management companies, folks that sell security for a living, but they don't sell any of the other things that we had on our chart up here. We fill in those gaps for them and help them monetize. We pay them a commission. So in our world, we have a commission that we receive. We split that with an internal sales rep. We split that with another rep. It could be another rep on top of that as well if the corporate side from their company gets a piece. So there's a lot of moving parts there that we have to keep track of. And so we're struggling right now with finding sort of a utility usage kind of billing model that we can track and use as a tool that also would allow us to track our regular buys and cost of goods sold and profits on deals. That's one of the things we're trying to really solve. And then last, again, building out a remote workforce. Because we can hire one person and leverage them many, many times over with their own partner channels, we have the unique ability to basically stick a person in Charlotte or in Boston or New York or wherever we might want and instantly have 30 or 40 really other sales guys working for us, which is kind of a blessing and also kind of a curse because it's a lot of coordination, again, from commission standpoint, pipeline management, advertising and marketing support for these guys. So one of the things we're struggling right now is, do we go down that road or do we just stay here in Atlanta and hire here but just give people territories so that we can kind of manage them in-house as opposed to having them out in the field. But those are the 3 big areas I think that we're looking for a little bit of feedback on, and I'm welcoming anybody that has any ideas on that.
Thank you, Rob.
Mhm.
So let's open it up. Let's ask some questions that you might have about the business model, what he does. I know a lot of this stuff is way over my head, so.
Yeah, we can talk about that
I know
if
you
you
guys are
want.
smarter than I am, so let's open it up here for the next 8 or 10 minutes to ask questions. And if you could, Rob, simplify it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have a mic? We need a microphone, or do we have one? No, I don't have a mic this week. Okay, so somebody right here.
Yeah, hey Rob. So I think 1 and 3 are very similar to one another in terms of the VAR that you guys may be or that you're selling to. So getting commission from them, but then also building up the remote workforce and having to pay out the commissions in that sense. Have you considered a hire of doing something around sales operations that could do quasi-marketing as well? So obviously the heavy lifting of that is going to be end of the month or when payments come in. So during in between the middle of the month, have them do more of a marketing role, and then flip over into a sales ops role, so that it's off of your desk.
Reconciliation of commission reports and things like that. Yeah, it's not a bad
It's not
idea.
accounting necessarily.
Yeah, and one of the things I didn't put on here because we were trying to stick to 3 was we were deciding whether or not to outsource all of that commission tracking today and bookkeeping to one of the big firms downtown. Not because we necessarily need it right now, but as we grow, I mean, we've got a project we're working on with a large convenience store that's got 50,000 locations. If we get that deal, it's going to be overwhelming in a good way.
Sure.
In a good way. But just think about, regular telecom bills for a site times 50,000, right? That we're going to have to manage for these guys. So that's again kind of why we're going through the outsourcing route as opposed to bringing it in-house. Because even if I brought it in-house, I'd probably have to hire 5 people that are already industry experts at this stuff to even just process those bills. 5 people at $60,000, $70,000 a month is a pretty good bite to take just to manage paperwork.
Sure.
So for us, it'd be worth making a big investment in paying somebody third party every month to try and do that. I think because then if they run into problems with getting things done, they're going to have to scale it out on their side and take the burden and the risk of the employee.
Those boxes that you have, is that what the 50,000 gas stations are going to put in? Kind of? Smaller?
So we sell in sort of this ecosystem model, right? And kind of back to my earlier point about how everything is now sort of tying back to IT, right? Think even sales guys, they're mobile. How do you secure their mobile devices? What happens if somebody leaves? How do you wipe that data off? How do you track where they are? How do you provide applications and email and all that stuff to them? So for a 7-Eleven, right? They've got some edge computing needs, if you will, right? They have to process credit cards, they have to get mail, all that kind of stuff. Even if it's only 1 or 2, PCs or something in an office or tablets in an office. They have phones, they have internet, probably a backup internet system. They may offer Wi-Fi out to their customers. They have to secure it. Someone's going to manage that 24/7, right? Because the guy working at the convenience store is not going to do that. And so they also have to be very lean, right? So they have to have a lot of visibility to make sure that there's network problems or whatever. A convenience store can't be down ever. So it's a big issue for them to have somebody that come in and manage all of that. But they have stuff already, so we kind of have to build them a vision on how to change what they're doing and really simplify things. But yeah, that would be a first step, is putting something like that in the edge. But that's only really one piece of sort of the whole puzzle.
And then your company will manage that?
They're going to hire. We don't actually do anything. Like I said, we have about relationships with 2,700 different vendors, right? That took us basically 2 years to put together all the distributors that have those relationships, all the certifications for all the ones we wanted to carry. We're agnostic, but we also know that there's probably 3 or 4 in each category, all those different categories. Go back here. In each of those categories, it might be 3 or 4. It might be regional based, right? So a managed service provider that has guys that come out and drives trucks and turn wrenches might just be in Atlanta, but they can cover the surrounding states, and they're really, really good. But then somebody like a 7-Eleven is going to need somebody that's national, and maybe 2 guys that are national that have big rolling truck teams. So often we have to have those certifications and everything in place too before we can start going after a client like that.
Rob, it's not a question, but this school here is part of the Technical College System of Georgia.
Yeah.
The CIO's name is Stephen Ferguson. These guys have exactly the same kind of problems you're talking about. So that might be a good guy to talk to because they're trying to solve these issues right now.
Yeah, they have some real particular challenges too with managing desktops and endpoints. If you have several thousand students, or if you're city of Atlanta and you got 20+ thousand kids in the Atlanta public schools, think about how much time is spent just upgrading Windows or managing security. God knows, kids never get on sites they shouldn't get on when they're in school, right? And we want, as educators or as technology guys, we want them to have every piece of technology they have at home, right? They should have the ability to come use their phones and use tablets and use laptops and stuff in the classroom, because it just makes sense. But with that comes a lot of responsibility and a lot of oversight and a lot of time and money spent in refreshing those products and keeping them up to date. That's where having somebody, that has some different ideas on how to deliver those applications might really help them. But yeah, if you know somebody, I'd be happy to talk to them. Yes.
Hey Rob, so managed services can be extremely profitable, but it can tank you as well if you get into something that a tech doesn't know how to handle. And obviously that world is changing rapidly.
Yeah.
How are you going about finding the right talent that can handle, they have a Cisco backend system, they have Symphony on one end. How do you find the right people that can handle the different languages associated with all the products that are in an office, in a building?
Yeah, so we kind of look at them as, even though most managed service providers have, they have practices across the ecosystem, if you will, or half of it or 2/3 of it, whatever it might be. Some guys don't do surveillance and access control for key cards and things like that. That's fine. Those are more specialty type guys, or the guys that do credit card swipers and PCI compliance. Those usually live in their own little world, like telecom does.
Sure.
From us, I don't want to take on that risk. I don't want to have to continually keep up training and certifying staff members. Coming from the VAR world, where you had to do that to kind of climb the ladder for discounts and get visibility and leads and things like that, that's a hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
For us, I'd rather partner and vet out those partners. And again, to your point, I think it's a little difficult for us too, because we do a lot of really emerging tech, which oftentimes I'm creating new revenue markets for really what could be my competitors by getting them to get their guys certified and their support teams and their call centers certified when we sell managed services for, say, something like HyperConverged. Nobody else did it. I did. There we go, back to that. Thank you. I'll get you before the day's over. Everyone being used like a dance game. So yeah, that is difficult a little bit in that we've got to convince them, if they're not already certified in some technology that we're trying to sell that's very disruptive, we've got to go work with them and kind of build a vision for them on what's possible, right? If you guys get certified with even 2 or 3 engineers, we're going to bring in another $5 million in revenue for you next year, right? We're having this conversation right now is those types of products, I mentioned some of the names that we're using them already. The traditional cloud vendors that are around town, I don't know if you guys know QTS or any of these guys, the big data centers in town,
Mm-hmm.
have built it all on sort of the before picture from Oriental Hotels. It's a bunch of different parts and pieces and specialty products. We're actually 30% cheaper than Amazon and Azure and AWS, and Google, as cloud version, using those individual boxes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they can also be on-prem or off-prem, so they can have hybrid as well, where none of the public cloud vendors do that. They'll bring them to a data center, but they won't bring them to your office.
Right.
So that kind of technology is really compelling for someone that's trying to compete in a normalized data center world where their costs are pretty much the same as everybody else's costs. We come in and we're half the price. That's really interesting to them, right? But we're having to get them to get on board as well and kind of get away from their traditional practices by hiring and training their guys over again on this newer technology.
Well, I'm assuming, and it happens on the back end as well, is that you've got a CIO who's been on board for 25 years who hasn't kept up with the times, and
Yes.
trying to convince them and not sell them to it, but you're going to have to educate them on the process of what's different now than it was before.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get into it, but if you want to think about what it is, I think I mentioned it's the iPhone for the data center. If you think about what happened to Best Buy when the iPhone dropped in, what were the different departments, right? You had laptops and TomToms that you suction cup to your dash and calculators. Little League video cameras and SLR cameras and all that was great, right? And they looked at the iPhone like, map stinks, camera's no good, doesn't store anything, right? But over time, as the server, as that platform, that phone got much deeper in terms of storage and much faster in terms of processing power, and when flash prices crashed from 95% in the last 5 years, now that phone is more powerful than most of the other electronics in the store. And it does all the functions of all those other things. So now what do you do if you're a Best Buy sales guy? Or what if you do if you're Best Buy and you have all these different people that are trained on all these different products, right? It's a tough pill to swallow, because if I'm an IT director or a CIO and I have a whole team of guys, storage guy, network guy, application guy, whatever, and they all build their own little thing. Now, like Home Depot has 3 guys that runs all the IT for 2,200 locations now with this. 3 guys. You know how many they had before? 300. 300. What do you do with 297 guys and girls, right? So luckily, that's not usually a problem in IT. There's plenty of stuff to do, right? But that solves a lot of problems for that one area that customers love, right? And it's just it's not a brand new technology, but it's just new to them. So you got to kind of build a little bit of vision on that piece of it. But usually, once we've done that, or once we've kind of had those kind of conversations, they get it, they see what we're trying to do, and they come right in line. So.
Next question of the group. Do we need to use a microphone, or can you all hear okay?
Am I projecting?
We can hear fine.
Can you hear the questions and everything?
I'll take it, Will.
So I've got a question for you, Rob.
Yeah.
So, and this is great questions, you guys. Let's kind of jump in. We got about 25 minutes or so to talk about the 3 bullets here. Could you, you did this a little bit earlier, but bullet number 3, building a remote workforce. My question is, you've got partners, there's 2,700 or so other companies out there that are selling the boxes, services, what have you.
They're the vendors. So they're the ones that sell this cloud services, or to this point, managed security, managed applications. They're the ones watching your systems when you embed it.
Okay. So maybe this is a dumb question, but why do you need a remote workforce when you've got all the vendors out there? Aren't they your workforce? Or are you talking about
I'm talking about our guys, our sales guys, yeah,
consultants.
consultants. Right. You can almost consider them channel managers / sales guys, right? There's a direct sales force, that's guys like myself, right, where I go in and sell the Turners and Georgia Pacifics. And then we've got the indirect sales force, which partners with these other clients to go and sell large scale retail and things like that.
And from a standpoint of remote, you're talking about basing people on a regional basis, area basis?
Yeah, we have like your operations person, our main operations person just moved to St. Thomas, which is a little bit scary for me. Yeah, she's working remote right now. This is her 2nd week doing it. But it's interesting, the culture change when we do something like that. It's all on the phone, it's all on WebEx, things like that. So it's a different model than I'm used to from a management standpoint. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was over at the mastermind at the Chamber of Commerce, so I missed the beginning parts of your talk. But from what I gather, how much of your sales guys are showing up in person, driving or flying to the location to close a deal, and how many of your deals, if any, are closed over the phone or over email, where you could have someone remote integrate into that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because the business really has 2 sides. There's the transactional side, so back to our 7-Eleven issue. The 7-Eleven needs a fiber line or a cable line. That's not something we're kidnapping and driving to Texas for, right? Even if it's 150 of them or 200 of them a month. That's transactional, it's just paperwork.
That's a vendor.
From a strategic standpoint, right, that first or second or third conversation is a in-person conversation, because it's not about, it's not about that line, it's about going through and talking about that, right? How, if you want to put in, we just got back from, you guys know Red Robin Hamburgers?
Yep.
Okay, so they have 600 locations. The CIO called us about 2 months ago and said, hey, we just rolled out, this kind of works like a Monopoly board. We kind of walk around this way. It's kind of in order of priority as well. That's the reason it's laid out this way. But you see where kind of mobile and tablets and stuff are. They put the, Chili's has those little tablets on the table, you can play games and pay. And they have a mobile app you can order and pull up. Well, they tried to do this, but they didn't address the very first step, which is network. They have 5 guys running 600 locations, but they were getting 20,000 network errors per week. How do you manage 20,000 network errors, right? But he did it anyway. He spent $10 million on the tablets and everything like that, rolled it all out with the software, and it failed miserably because he couldn't connect, they couldn't pay, or it was too slow. That guy's looking for a job now, right? He was on there maybe 5 months. And we tried to have a conversation. I know if you got to prioritize these things and put them in order, then you'd already made this one. So, but to your question, those kinds of conversations, this big picture stuff, so that they can kind of shuffle the deck, put the cards in order, have to happen in person. The individual components are mostly done over the phone or over the WebEx, things like that. Yes?
So a lot of your presentation has been like Charlie Brown, I'll be honest.
It's been what?
Which is fine.
It's been like
I'm
Charlie
good.
Brown.
They're just like, however,
Yes.
in looking at this from like my standpoint, a lot of what that hits the news are when people are affected. So when
Okay.
this data transfers to a person, so for example, when all the credit card numbers were stolen from that big retailer,
Yeah.
that's what hits the news. So
Yes.
the piece of this that comes to the consumer in general, when it's done incorrectly, is that data breach concept.
Yeah, that would be one of the implications of not having a managed security or even internal security from an
But
IT standpoint.
when you're building your workforce, so here's my question. When you're building your workforce, does your world have a code of ethics or a stamp of this person has been like extra background check for potential issues? Because I can imagine people in your world are so freaking smart that they could get into these systems and plant things, whatever those things are called, that could, if they're ticked off with you enough, could cause future problems. I feel like that as you're building your workforce, I was curious if they're like a fiduciary responsibility.
How do you vet
That's the wrong
someone?
word, but like how are you judging who you're adding to your team from that view?
Sure. So back to reiterate our point, we never actually touch anything, right? So we're kind of I won't say the general contractor because general contractor still swings hammers, but think of us as like a realtor. Okay, you move into a new town, you need to figure out who the good builders are, what the good neighbors are, neighborhoods are, where the school systems are. You got to get through the contract process, but you're not really paying us. The vendor is going to pay us, regardless of who it is, whoever's selling the house. We're not actually building it. We're not actually doing any of that work. We're helping Home Depot figure out what to do first and what to change and what the impacts of those changes are going to be on the business and their personnel. And then we put them in the right order and we show them, hey, look, here's the top 50 vendors, but what you basically after the discovery, we know what's really important to them and who matches up from, say, a ISO 9000 certification or somebody that's HIPAA compliant if you're a healthcare company. And we bring those to the forefront as opposed to, Joe Blow service guy that's got 3 people.
So Rob, if I may, because I think a lot of what happens is that the internal Home Depots think that they could do this themselves, and they haven't been schooled in all the different things and all the different vendors. And so, like Polycom, for instance, Polycom will have a backdoor opening that Polycom may know about. Home Depot doesn't know about it yet. But as a vendor who kind of touches a lot of these different areas, they could suggest and point in the direction.
Yeah, like we might do 1,000 phone systems a year in the resale, right? Not resale, but as an agent, we put those guys together. So we know kind of where all the bones are buried. We know where the really good teams are that can help with implementation and design, and who's kind of guys that just ship you the phones and say, hey, you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the kind of things that I think companies really get concerned about, in addition to basic certifications and there's all kinds of contract language around it, service level agreements and uptime and security and non-disclosure of things. Obviously, anybody that's a vendor that has any kind of substantial size has already vet all that stuff out. So
you're the hub to connect to others to that.
like a realtor, yeah.
And then your business, I'm assuming, is protected in case that vendor were to screw up. You have language within your stuff.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually don't take contract. Very rare cases when we're actually, like if somebody bought a server from us and we resold it, it's still warranted by the manufacturer. It's still covered, with return policies and things like that. Most of the time, we're simply getting paid a residual, like a realtor or an insurance broker, right, for doing that upfront research and then actually helping them with the provisioning process. Is that clear?
That's
Not so wah.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
A couple of questions on your processes again. Where are your leads coming from, and then how many points of contact you have to have in person, and in what area are you mainly having those points of contact before you go to close a sale?
Sure. So oddly enough, we don't really sell to the IT guys, which might surprise some of you guys. We actually prefer to sell to CFOs, the business line leaders, right? VP of sales, guys like that, and CEOs. CISO, you guys have Chief Information Security Officers now, are a thing. But we're trying to sell to people that are actually involved in the business. For too long, I think IT's kind of had a stranglehold on everything that happens. And if you're a sales guy and you need something done, or a marketing person, and you ask IT, they're probably going to say no 3 times before somebody makes them say yes. So we found that it's much easier and much more productive to actually go to the business units and find out what they really want. That's a lesson I've learned over 20-some years doing this, but it wasn't always the case, right? We used to try and convince the IT guys, and most IT guys don't want to change anything, right? It's a hassle for them. Yes? I hadn't asked you your question though. You said, what kind of leads we get? Are they,
So
where do we get our leads?
where's your lead funnel? Where
So,
does your leads come from?
I do a lot of public speaking. I probably do 40 keynotes a year and then probably do 250 shows. I'm all over the place, whether that's a plant tour for a manufacturing company like Yamaha, and we're talking about IoT on the plant floor, Internet of Things. Or if it's, we get a lot of leads from, again, our sub-agent community. So the guy that's selling copiers or doing property management for 150 apartment locations or hotel management companies. We're providing value to them, teaching them about all these kind of ideas of this new technology all the time. And a lot of times they'll just call them, hey, I've got 200 locations. We heard that if you guys, redo our plain old phone copper lines we plug into the wall, that we can save 50%. And so, it's 50% savings times 100 buildings times maybe 10 lines of building or 50 lines of building is a big deal for those guys.
So they're physically calling you, or are they going online and doing contact?
Mostly calling. We don't do any e-commerce sales whatsoever. Again, because most of our stuff is a little bit, to use her word, it's a little complicated. Or it's a little bit, they don't know what they don't know, so they want to have a conversation. Yeah. Right? They've heard us speak about a certain technology, or they've heard us speak about how we arrange this method so that even City of Ackworth, Athens, Clark County, that has the county around UGA, we just got done doing those little boxes for all the courthouse and fire and safety. Went from, I think, 10 full refrigerator racks down to 3/4 of one rack a year. It's a big deal for them. So. A lot of money. I think we saved like $8 million in 5 years.
Rob, if you could put your final slide on there with your 3 bullet
Yeah.
points. We've got about 10 minutes or so. Delve into these. Let's give Rob some feedback. Questions on methods handling commissions.
Number 3.
Commission tracking CRM, and building out a remote workforce.
So with the remote workforce, what's the average value of a deal?
The transactional one's probably $1,500 a month for 36 months or 5 years. The resale ones, the data center ones, could be $500,000-$600,000.
Okay, so why does the workforce need to be remote? Wouldn't it be easier to have someone here and then just have them, supply them plane tickets?
Yeah, that's what we're doing now.
Okay.
We do run into the issue that we're a little bit outside of the big tech hubs downtown or in Alpharetta. So for us, letting people, and good, again, most good sales guys aren't in their office all day. They're out seeing customers, hopefully, if they're doing their job. So we kind of want them out, but we want to make it easy for them to get places. So whether they're here, or whether they're in Raleigh, or whether they're in Boston, whatever that is, we kind of want to figure out, is that a good strategy for us, or for the next few years, should we just stay here in Atlanta and do like what you're saying, just ship people all over the place?
All So
I
remote
vote
being-
for that.
Sorry?
I vote for that.
That second
From
one?
experience, I would grow here, and then when you have to go out and deal, because once you know this, you're just gonna buy yourselves all kinds of problems with having to deal. Now you have all the issues you talked about earlier, when I go off of it, it's like dealing with every state and every laws and about their employees, it's a lot, plain cheap, plain flights are cheap.
Yeah.
And you can say, there are people, they'll make the connection in their head, the more time I spend on the road, the more money I make, and they'll get on the road 4 or 5 days a week. And overall, that's very little money compared to having employees out of state or field offices, or they work out of their house and their dog's barking.
We've had that, yeah, definitely had that. Yes?
So advancing with the remote workforce, building the relationships with people that are sending you, you just use an example of the guy that used the copper wire.
Yeah.
But do you have somebody whose sole purpose is developing those relationships so that they are natively sending it back to you?
Yes.
And you're not selling, you're just developing, and then they can be your sales force.
Yeah, so, you know, as you grow a company, right, first it was me and my business partner, and then we added a third person that did marketing, and we actually bootstrapped the business by doing events where we invited our vendors to sponsor.
Smart.
They pay $15,000 for a 2-hour event, in total, like maybe 4 or 5 guys, and we would spend $1,000 on the venue, and that helped us bootstrap for several months. Old casino history there that I used to do those kind of events. But yeah, as we grow, I've gone and taken the direct side. My partner is now taking the channel side. And in the last few months, actually, it's interesting because he's like, hey, we need to bring on more guys to replace me in that role of going out and selling with those partners. I'll be the guy that goes, or he'll be the guy that goes and develops all those strategic relationships that can really scale. He's great at it, so much better than I am. I'm kind of aggressive when it comes to sales. So. Anyhow, yeah, so he does that now, but that is definitely a strategy that we have. The direct side is more of home runs, right, 3-run homer, as opposed to the strategic side, which is more transactional, but it's long-term, you know, recurring revenue base that really grows. Yeah.
Rob, number 2. Okay. What would make your commission process any different from any other business except by volume, perhaps? That a Salesforce.com, an Infor, a Oracle, SAP couldn't handle?
Yeah, that's the, in fact, I'm meeting with him for lunch. But one of the things that makes it kind of unique is that you've got, you've got contracts that are already put in place for a specific amount of time, specific amount of money. Those can vary by either the product usage, or like the amount that we're using something. Think utilities, like when you use your electric or your gas. Right now, they've got 2 models, right? You've got your prepaid, every month's the same month for 12 months, where they just stack it at some high rate, right? So they're not going to lose fluctuations. Or it's variable, right? You might get $50, $50, $500, $50, $50, $1,000, whatever it might be, depending how big your house is. That is what we struggle with, because differently than a utility, you don't always know what you're going to spend when you buy a house, right? It is variable. With us, we've actually got contracts that say what it's supposed to be, but then they can add phone lines, they can take off phone lines. It might be a contract for 20 locations, they close one, they move one, whatever it is. There's all these random charges that happen to that bill, and QuickBooks or NetSuite or any of these others don't really have a way to assign and then continue those changes farther in the contract. So if I change something month 2, it's not just month 2 that I have to adjust that commission's overage under. It's ongoing, and there might be 50 other changes.
That's where the big guys are. I mean, this isn't a new model.
No,
so
no, it's not.
You're gonna pay a premium for it, but it's gonna take a big load.
Well, that's why we're trying to either build it, which I know would cost us about 25 grand, maybe 20 grand. We can build it, or we can
managing it.
SaaS it. And that's my thing. I've been in this long enough to know
I came from it.
it's a hamster wheel, because as soon as you get it built, you're constantly updating, you're constantly refreshing.
I don't think your model is much different than what we've sold. I sold for Infor, so I don't think it's much different than what we've seen before. It's just a matter of negotiating it to make it.
I think it's probably, I just don't know what I don't know about that piece, right? I know the resale market really well for commissions and all that stuff. It's super simple to do. It's the telecom and the data center cloud world that's so variable. It's really, really tough to manage. Because more so than even how much money we're making, which is important, and being able to forecast is fine. It's with sub-agents and with sales guys, I think you guys all know this, transparency is key. And if you don't know your numbers and you can't say, hey, here's why you got paid what you got paid, That's my biggest fear, I
Yep.
think. You know, as we start to scale and really start to pull down some good sized deals,
Yeah.
that's what I want to avoid, is running into any kind of roadblocks along that way.
I might comment simplistic here, but what I would tell you is that as opposed to trying to map your commission system to the products you're selling, which will confuse your sales force beyond belief, if they're going to try and figure out what they can make most money on,
Right.
they'll end up going to just a couple of products, not to this whole vast amount of stuff you're selling. I would make that as simple as possible. I mean, to the degree that when they wake up in the morning, they pull out the drawer, their nightstand drawer, look at the comp plan and says, go sell something. Just make it really easy for them to sell.
Yeah, it's not their commission is not variable on by product. It is what it is. So they're going to get 25%, 50%, whatever it is. It's just how much money that commission. You know, if we sell a $1,000 circuit, that might make $150 a month for us for 3 years.
Right.
If we sell a $500,000 data center, that might make $100,000, but it's now.
Yeah.
They're still going to get the same percentage of it regardless. So.
But you want recurring deals like every other SaaS company does.
Of course, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So you want to have the quick wins while you're young because cash flow is king, and you also want to have the recurring base that's being built by somebody that will carry you when somebody gets sick or you have a bad quarter or whatever it might be. So that, and again, so that you can forecast and you can understand how your business is going to grow in
That
2
could be
years.
good for salespeople too.
It could be, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'd almost rather have the bigger menu of items that I could then land and expand into an account. So you come in and maybe it's managed services to start, but then it becomes managed security at the end.
Yeah.
The challenge is, I think, for me, just because I don't know your business, right? For me is those logos you have everywhere. I mean, every one of those is a massive problem to solve.
It is.
Every one of those. So as opposed to going and trying to sell all that, I would have some specialists in certain areas, which would mean, again, putting your sales force here and having like IoT is to me the most interesting part of that slide, right? Having somebody that focuses on that, because you don't want a guy that has a back, you were an Infor. You don't want to have a guy with an Infor background trying to sell IoT stuff that they don't know anything about.
Sure.
Exactly, right. And that's we call it volleyball sales in our world. So again, I'm a data center guy. We have an IoT girl that's in Buckhead. We have a guy here that does telecom. We have another guy that does project management and auditing and telecom assistance management. And I'll come in and land a data center deal, and then I'll again set him up, this guy for the network to support that data center. Again, when we have that big visionary talk, they know instantly how everything is related at the end of that meeting and what the progress is, the chain of events that's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. All we're doing then is making sure that our subject matter experts are engaged at the right times so that I sell my 2 or 3 things or try to, and then they move on to the next thing that supports what we've done or that we've enabled them to go do. Again, back to the Red Robin thing with the doing the network first, then doing the mobile apps would have been much smarter for them in the long run, and he wouldn't be looking for it.
When I first came in today, I was a couple minutes late. I was stuck in a traffic jam on 575. I was expecting you to say that you were calling on the SMB market, and that's where you were focusing. But I've heard just big names, and so from that standpoint, I'll tell you this 20 years ago, but I'll tell you Oracle had a perfect model for what you're doing there. Is having an account manager. It was kind of this big visionary talk for you going in as talking about the bigger thing, but having these PSRs, this product sales reps, that are focusing on these 2 or 3 areas that they're subject matter experts.
That's right. It was back to his point about how do we engage, right? It's that first or second conversation is big picture.
Yeah.
And we're not selling all of it, right? We're taking temperature, we're kind of figuring out where their priorities are. A lot of it too is, think about your home, right? If I'm selling HVAC stuff and you just put it in a new HVAC unit, you don't need me for 10 more years.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other stuff in that house that if I have partnerships with, and I have the knowledge of what's new and fantastic, I want to have those engagements, I want to have those conversations. But I'm still going to remember that 10 years from now, he's going to need another
I
HVAC
think where
unit.
this leads us here, number 3, is that I think it keeps pointing back to build it here. Keep your PSRs here.
Yeah, you could have-
managers here.
Yeah.
You just move your guys up.
Be a large office in some other region. You know, because I just wouldn't have a PSR that a product sales rep is all I'm talking about. A subject matter expert sitting in Phoenix or Austin or Ann Arbor or something like that I now got to fly to Southern California because we have an opportunity where that expertise is needed.
Yeah.
Focus in one place and fly in places.
Yeah, I think I
They
agree.
need to account manager and PSRs to be talking to each other all the time.
Yes.
That's a good point.
What's give me an idea, what's 1, 3, 5 year plan? I mean, you've obviously been successful, 6 business, you said?
Yeah.
So what's kind of long-term outlook?
For this company? Oh, that's my friend, my client. A couple of things, right? One is to continue kind of replicating what we're doing already on a much bigger scale. I don't know that we want to be a 500-person company or even a 100-person company, just because I don't know if I want to work that hard. But I think we have aspirations to kind of really change some things out there in the market. 3 to 5 years from now, I imagine we'll probably be looking for an exit strategy, or we're going to be looking to partner up with a much larger company that maybe does managed services on a global scale, and just bring in a whole sales engine for those guys and bolt it on to what they do from an engineering standpoint, and help them monetize their existing accounts. We've seen that a couple of different times in the telco space, where telecom expense management companies, I don't know if you guys know much about that, they come in for like a Napa Auto Parts that has 8,000 locations, and they'll look at all the bills, audit them, get rid of anything that's like not being used anymore, and then they'll go renegotiate with the vendors and save 30-40%, and they get half of that or 40% of that for a certain amount of time, so it might be millions of dollars. But a lot of companies just give the advice on what they should do and don't get paid for when it actually happens. So that's a way that a lot of telecom companies like ours, we would bolt on, partner with, buy them, whatever it is, and now you have both sides of the fence. You get all the money for saving the money, but then you get paid by the vendors on a residual basis for actually making the change to those vendors. So it's win, 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 and then you can also get paid for the project management of that whole thing too. So that is kind of that is probably the most likely scenario of what will happen to us over time. We could also just keep continuing to grow.
Because they see you as a revenue stream to add to the bottom line. So
Yeah, exactly.
That's
While
great,
reducing
guys.
overhead.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank
Thank you.
you.